If you don't learn this one key for your writing, you will die. See, that's an example of a hook. And it's completely untrue. But nonetheless, hooks are really, really important. We talk a lot more about hooks when we talk about writing for marketing than we do when we talk about writing for fiction. But nonetheless, they are just as important for fiction. Today, I'm going to give you two strategies to make sure that you are capturing your reader's attention right out of the gate so that you can tell them a great story. Before you can tell a story, you first have to get somebody's attention. We live in this world where we are surrounded by sensory information. You know, there's a TV on in the next room, or you're at a coffee shop and some people are having a conversation by you, or even if you're at the park, you know, there's birds and dogs and everything around you, and there's always things that are competing for your attention. So, as writers, we have to be proactive about this and we have to grab our reader's attention before the story even begins. It doesn't matter how great your story is. If nobody ever starts it, if we don't hook their attention, they'll never read it. The way that we do that is with a hook. When I say hook, I just mean some idea, some sentence that captures your reader's attention right out of the gate, that hooks them and doesn't let them go until you get to the end of the story. Now, there are a lot of ways that you can hook a reader's attention, but I'm going to give you two specific strategies today. Those strategies are imminent action and story gaps. Imminent action is what we see the most of, especially like if you watch TV. There's something that happens at the beginning of the episode that we just literally have to know how the action of the scene unfolds. Classic example would be a cliffhanger, where we literally have a character who is hanging from a cliff, and that's how the story begins. And so we are hooked because we don't want them to fall from the cliff. A story could drop us into an argument, into a fight. It doesn't matter, but there's some action on the screen that is unresolved that we just need to see how it finishes. Let me give you an example from a short story. So this is from the short story Beyond Brothers by Anita DeVries, which is in the Lawless anthology. And here's the first sentence. My brother's right fist halted in midair at the sound of rapidly clanging bells. So right there, we are sucked into action. We have a fist that is literally in midair, and we also have this noise, clanging bells. So there's a lot going on there that we have to see it through. We want to read the next sentence to see where this fist goes next. Now, this works for all kinds of genres. It doesn't just have to be in an action adventure sense, but in a drama, we could drop people right into the middle of an argument between two characters. We could drop the reader into a workplace disaster or some kind of other emotional or physical danger that the character might be facing. Whatever it is, there is some kind of action of the story that is unresolved, and we don't start with a big premise buildup, but we drop them right into the action, and then we build the premise organically around that action as we move forward. The second strategy is a story gap. Have you heard of a story gap before? A story gap is when a story introduces a question but doesn't answer it right away. It holds our attention through the story because we have to know the answer to that question. Let's look at Charles Dickens' A Tale of Two Cities. It begins, it was the best of times, it was the worst of times. Now, immediately, we have a lot of questions about that. What was the best? What was the worst? How could it be the best and the worst at the same time? And so we are hooked into the story. We want to keep reading to see how Charles Dickens resolves that seeming paradox that he introduces in the beginning of the story. We could also look at more modern examples like The Fault in Our Stars by John Green, which begins this way. Late in the winter of my 17th year, my mother decided I was depressed. Presumably because I rarely left the house, spent quite a lot of time in bed, read the same book over and over, ate infrequently, and devoted quite a bit of my abundant free time to thinking about death. That opens some story gaps. We have a whole bunch of questions about this character right off the bat. Why is she depressed? Why is she thinking about death? And John Green continues to open that story gap with the next sentence. Whenever you read a cancer booklet or website or whatever, they always list depression among the side effects of cancer. But in fact, depression is not a side effect of cancer. Depression is a side effect of dying. And so he continues to open up all of these questions about who this character is, cancer, death, all of these things that we need to see resolved. And so we are hooked into the story until we get the answers to those questions. Another example would be The Kite Runner by Khaled Hosseini. And it begins this way. I became what I am today at the age of 12 on a frigid, overcast day in the winter of 1975. I became what I am today at the age of 12. Now that opens a huge story gap because we're immediately left with questions like, well, what are you today? Are you a hero? Are you a criminal? Are you a saint? Are you a con artist? But we have to have that question answered, and so it compels us through the story. So when you're writing, these are two strategies that you can employ. One, is there a way that you can drop the reader into some type of action that is happening right now in such a way that they just have to see what happens next because they didn't ask to be put here, but here they are in the middle of this big thing. Secondly, can you introduce something that generates a question in the reader's mind that just has to be answered? Can you use that story gap to compel them through the story? This whole thing is sort of like a song that gets stuck in your head. So I'm sure you've experienced that. And the reason a song gets stuck in your head is because your brain believes that it's an unfinished task. So your brain believes that we better keep track of this thing until we finish it off. Just like if your mom told you to do a chore and you're trying to remember to do it until it gets done. Except this one, for some reason, your brain actually remembers. We are trying to get a song stuck in our reader's mind. And that's the value of imminent action, and that's the value of story gaps. They both introduce something that is unfinished. And so our brain connects with that, our brain is hooked by that, and our brain won't let go until we have a resolution to that, until we can check the box that, okay, this thing has been resolved. And that's the premise of hooking your reader. We live in this society that is saturated by media. You are surrounded by thousands of marketing messages all the time. Whether you're reading a book, whether you're reading online, it doesn't matter. There is stuff that is competing for your attention. Part of what we do here at the company is we run The Pearl, which is an online literary magazine. And so even there, we're publishing short stories primarily, but we have to grab the reader's attention right out of the gate, and we have to hold it through the whole story because we are competing with everything else that is available to them online. Everything on social media, everything on Netflix, wherever they like to hang out, there is tons of interesting stuff there. And so at any time, if we lose their attention from that story, it's so easy. One click and they are off to YouTube, or they are off to their favorite show on Amazon Prime. Wherever they like to go, one click and they're gone. And even though we can really see that and experience that with like an online short story, the same exact thing is true of a book that you write or a short story that you write. And so the first step to telling somebody a great story is getting their attention. So use these two strategies, imminent action and story gaps, to put your hooks in them so that they can't let go. And if you're really good at this, maybe you'll find a way to use both of those strategies at the same time. Oh, I'm sorry, you're still here. Do you think there was going to be something clever or witty at the end? No, there's not.